Welcome to the TOEFL listening section. In this part, you will hear one or more conversations in an academic or campus context, such as a discussion between a student and a professor, or between two students. You may take notes while listening. Listen to part of a conversation. You will hear it only once, so listen carefully. After the conversation, you will answer questions about what you heard. Some questions will ask you about main ideas and details. Others will ask about implied meaning, speaker attitude, or how ideas relate to one another. Use both what is stated and what is implied to answer.
Good afternoon, Professor Harris. Thanks for meeting with me during office hours.
Good afternoon, Maya. How can I help with your research on intellectual property in the digital age?
I am preparing a paper about copyright challenges with online content sharing, and I wanted to check some legal points and examples with you.
That is a timely topic. Start by telling me which specific challenges you want to focus on.
I want to cover automated takedowns, fair use disputes, platform liability, and licensing solutions like Creative Commons.
All of those are central. Let us begin with the notice and takedown process under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in the United States.
Yes, I understand platforms get safe harbor protection if they follow notice and takedown procedures.
Exactly. Platforms such as video sites must expeditiously remove infringing material after receiving a valid notice to keep their safe harbor.
But what about fair use? Does the copyright owner have to consider fair use before sending a takedown notice?
Yes, there is a key case on that. In Lenz v. Universal, the court said that rights holders must consider fair use before submitting a takedown.
That case involved a home video of a child dancing to a song right.
Yes, it did. The court did not say every fair use claim is valid, but it required that copyright holders not ignore fair use.
So a mechanized system that sends takedowns without human review could be problematic.
Correct. If a platform simply forwards every takedown without checking for fair use, it risks losing safe harbor protection.
I have read about Content ID on YouTube, which matches audio and video automatically. Is that an example of automation creating issues?
Yes. Content ID is useful, but not perfect. Automated identification can produce false positives and block legitimate uses like remixes and parodies.
Does Content ID allow monetization instead of removal in some cases?
It does. Rights holders can choose to block content, monetize it, or track viewership. That creates complex incentive structures for creators.
That sounds like a patchwork of private ordering and public law.
It is. Platforms implement technical measures and private policies, but courts and statutes still govern the legal baseline.
What about remedies for users who think a claim is wrong?
Under the DMCA, users can file a counter notice. The platform may restore the content unless the claimant files suit, but the process is slow and can chill speech.
Chilling effect is a big concern for scholarship and parody.
Yes, and that is why courts stress considering fair use and why some scholars argue for stronger notice requirements or penalties for bad faith takedowns.
Are there other legal tools platforms use to reduce disputes?
Platforms use content identification, human review panels, appeals, and licensing agreements. Collective licensing for music is another tool.
Collective licensing, like blanket licenses through performing rights organizations, right?
Yes, organizations like ASCAP and BMI negotiate licenses that cover broad catalogs, simplifying permissions for platforms.
You mentioned Creative Commons earlier. How does that fit into the digital landscape?
Creative Commons licenses let creators pre-authorize certain uses. They reduce uncertainty by specifying whether derivatives are allowed and whether commercial uses are permitted.
So creators who want sharing to be easy can choose a license that allows reuse without repeated takedowns.
Exactly. That is an important non-litigation oriented solution.
What about jurisdiction issues when content is hosted in one country and users are in another?
Cross-border enforcement is complex. Copyright laws differ, and platforms may have to follow multiple legal regimes. This creates conflicting obligations.
That seems to make global platforms especially vulnerable to inconsistent takedowns.
Yes, global platforms face different standards for exceptions, like fair use or fair dealing in other countries.
We also talked about DRM in class. How does anti-circumvention law affect sharing and research?
Anti-circumvention provisions prohibit bypassing technological protection measures. That can restrict legitimate research or format shifting unless exceptions apply.
So technical restrictions can sometimes be stricter than copyright rules themselves?
Yes, and that has prompted calls for balanced exemptions for libraries, archives, and researchers.
What concrete examples should I include in my paper to illustrate these problems?
Include the Lens v. Universal decision to show fair use consideration. Use YouTube Content ID examples to show automation. Discuss collective licensing for music, and mention orphan works to illustrate permissions gaps.
Orphan works are those where the copyright owner cannot be located right.
Yes, and orphan works create a barrier to digitization and sharing because platforms fear infringement liability.
For policy recommendations, should I argue for more human review and better counter-notice procedures?
That would be persuasive. Recommend clearer guidelines for automated systems, better transparency for rights claims, and wider use of licensing mechanisms like Creative Commons.
I will include those suggestions and the legal examples you mentioned. One last question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you think reform is likely in the near future?
There is growing attention from regulators and courts. Expect incremental changes rather than sweeping reform, especially around transparency and notice procedures.
Thank you, Professor Harris. This helps me structure the paper and cite strong examples.
You are welcome, Maya. Send me a draft and we can refine the legal analysis and recommendations.
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
If a platform simply forwards every takedown without checking for fair use, it risks losing safe harbor protection.
This concludes the conversation portion. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.